Hello, everybody, and welcome to this very first interview series that I have. I am super excited to be welcoming today Saana Azzam, which really Saana and we've kind of connected through me moving to Dubai. So the series of interview is all about the secret diary of becoming a 10,000 keynote speaker. And we are super excited to be sharing with you some tips, some tricks, some ideas on how you as a speaker could move forward and elevate your speaking business to a next level. So there'll be lots of different interviews. We'll do interviews on with speakers, and today we'll do interviews with a speaker bureau, and who else than the best, the only speaker bureau in the MENA regions. Hi, Sana, how are you?
I'm very good. What an intro. Oh la la. I felt the energy all the way over here. Brilliant. Thank you for having me, Claire.
Well, it's a pleasure. We've known each other for several years, but we've only started working together since, we've written a book together, haven't we, really? So, which was really excited.
Yeah.
And so tell us a little bit about MENA Speakers. What does MENA Speaker do?
Mm. So we are the leading speakers agency in the Middle East, where we help event organizers and facilitators, conferences find the perfect speaker for their event. And it could be anything from a MC presenter, an expert in their field, up to celebrities that are in the 100,000, half a million, a couple of $1 million range. And we do that full scope across the Middle East. And we've been doing that for about 7, 8 years now.
Wow, 7, 8 years. Time flies, right? When you're having so much fun. It's a big job, right? And there's a lot of different elements to the job. And so if we're looking at, from a speaker bureau's perspective, when you're recommending a 10,000 keynote speakers, what are the kind of criterias that you are really looking for?
Mm, okay, great. So if let's ask the question slightly differently. If somebody comes and tells me I'm a $10,000 keynote speaker, okay, then I'm having expectations. As opposed
Mm.
to somebody who says I'm at 5K, 1K, or I've never been paid. So there are definitely dramatic expectations as we go up the range. I definitely expect somebody who is super professional in their background. So their background and their story is something that aligns with the topic that they're speaking about, so that there is that element of match. There's a congruency. And then the topic that they're speaking about is relevant. We don't want to talk about leadership topics from the 70s, from the 60s that's been regurgitated. It's relevant, it's fresh, it's modern. So the background and then the topic. And then number 3 that we look for is the personal brand element, the traction, the video, the socials. And if you're telling me you're a $10,000 speaker, then all of this is to be set, done. You are a well-established speaker that has your whole branding game in place. Your narrative is clear. You've refined all these elements of your signature keynotes, your bio. You have plenty of headshots, plenty of sizzle reels, a lot of YouTube videos. That's the expectation of somebody who's saying, I'm charging $10,000 for my time. If you've done all of that, then absolutely, you should be charging that amount because you've really invested in yourself, in your personal development and your brand. So that makes sense to me.
Mm. And so how do you actually match the speaker to the specific needs to the client? So you have obviously a long meeting with the clients, you talk about the events and the objectives, and how do you find those matches between?
Yeah, so we do a lot of consultative conversations. And what's interesting is that the client could potentially show up and tell us, this is what we want at this budget. So say
Oh.
they're like, we want somebody who covers a leadership, and it's for our senior executive team, and it's for the top management, and it is the most important decision makers. It's a really important meeting, but our budget is 5K. This is where we go, okay, time out. You want the Rolls Royce, like an excellent established senior speaker, but you're paying mid to junior range rates. That doesn't work. So then in our consultative sales, we have to bump them up to match their criteria, manage their expectations. But very often the client comes to us and says, this is my outcomes that I want from this session. This is what we want to achieve, and this is our budget. So we just try to match that. If all of it makes sense and the story is intact, then we match the speaker to the client request.
That's brilliant. Yeah, it's interesting as well, I think. Do you sometimes guide the clients because they think they may want something, but then they need something else?
All the time. And I think that's what we do. That's what agents do. That's what speaker bureaus, that's what we do. We are consultants. We are your trusted partner that is advising you on something that is so important, so complicated in a sense, and can have such a tremendous impact. So when you have a speaker on stage, it is such a prime opportunity to shape a culture, to influence people, and really create more greatness out of an organization. And that's not something to be taken lightly. So when they come to consultants, agents, speaker bureaus like us, our job is to help them achieve that, and to give them the right perspective on who they should be dealing with, who would be able to craft that type of message that they're looking for, and really hit home with what they want to achieve.
And on the other side, then, do you also work with the speakers to actually, um, advise and strategize in terms of what their topic is, or how can you really help them get to that particular gig or that particular client?
Yeah, the people that we work with at MENA Speakers are established professional speakers that already to a large degree understand the nature of the market. And so we don't really go into detailed coaching, calibration calls, because you're dealing with individuals that are already established in their career. There are times where we do, taking somebody from $0 to $1,000, from unpaid to paid. Yeah, there are times where we do that, where we get hired to do that, to put people on our speaker fast track program, in which we help them craft their narrative so it is something they're good at, but also commercially viable, and then just kind of produce that. And that was something that I had to do when I set up the business a couple of years ago, because the market, in many ways, there are a lot of great talent, but also it wasn't at parity necessarily many times with other international speakers. So in the Middle East, we had a lot of great people that were good at what they were talking about, but then their positioning, their craft, like their narrative wasn't exactly at parity with international speakers. So part of us being in this market has been about educating the market, really creating more sophistication around it. And in some ways, we have single-handedly shaped the market. When I set up the business a couple of years ago, there was nobody really doing it to the same degree. There are small actors, but not to this size and not this degree, and just making it more professional, competitive, and commercially interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess now we're back in, we're back in traveling, and so for local speakers or MENA speakers, there's a big competition out there. So you forever have to evolve and learn and develop and think and mature your skills in every possible ways, right?
Yeah, if you are looking to become a high earning, and the beauty of this sector is, if you do really well, you can do unbelievably well really quickly. And we've seen people rocket their rates, going from 10 to 30, 50, 70, 100, $1,000. And these are incredible rates to have for 20, 30 minutes on stage. And I do understand the amount of work behind it, but it's still a really lucrative business once it's done correctly and the speaker has really hit all cylinders when it comes to their delivery. And that's something that's fully feasible if you're hyper-focused and you're treating it as a business, as a serious business that constantly needs innovation, reinvention, upgrading. You're just leveling up on every front.
Do you see a certain trend at the moment? What kind of trends do we have at the moment? What are the hot topics that you've been asked for speakers?
So we are so lucky to live in an interesting part of the world that is constantly innovating. And the example of Dubai, but even Saudi Arabia and the neighboring countries, the easiest examples, you can be driving straight one day and then all of a sudden they built a new road and you're driving like that to the side. And you didn't know it, and there was no sign just before, and then all of a sudden that happens, and you have to go, oh, okay, let's go back. And there are reasons for it, for them doing that, but it's such a beautiful market that keeps you on your toes, and there are always new activities, activations, legislations, changes from the top down, from the leadership. So with regards to trends, there are trends, and they tend to move. So at the moment, coming back post summer, it's interesting. So we had before the summer a lot around diversity and inclusion. That was a topic that came a little bit, a few months prior to that was sustainability. Right now, I think we're back to basics again, as businesses are coming back. It's about leadership. It's about change management. It's about strategy. So it's really just back to basics at the moment.
And I guess this obviously COP28 coming up to the region towards the end of the year, so that should be a hot topic for a lot of the speakers in that field, really.
Yes, and what happens is that you will have a lot of delegations flying in that are going to have their own smaller events, and which most likely is going to ask for either, geopolitical or economic outlook for some of these delegations. That's always interesting, what's happening in the region. You also have these energizers, motivational speakers at some of these dinners and meetings. And then, of course, facilitators, presenters that are hosting these type of events. So we tend to see that when there's a large scale event like the FIFA World Cup or the Expo, where we had a lot of international delegations landing here in between and doing these type of things.
Yeah, it's interesting. I'm excited to see what's going to happen towards the end of the year. It's going to come very quickly, right? It's already almost mid-September. It'll be Christmas before we know. One of the things I wanted to ask you is do you think the customer's expectation or client's expectation has changed kind of from pandemic to now? Can you see a big change in perhaps even the event management and how do they run events?
So they definitely have changed, and I would say in our favor as speakers and bureau owners. I think the pandemic taught us the importance of gathering and congregating and meeting and discussing and having these really important conversations. It is something humans crave, love. And so we have definitely seen a higher demand and request for that type of thing. So as us, as speakers in our field, that's a good sign. We're happy about that. So there's a better appreciation to the power of what it means to meet, to listen, to learn, and grow together.
Nice. I think, it's totally, it's us bonding together, right? If anything that the pandemic has showed us, we are people, we are human being. We need to be, uniting ourselves, together to make our world better. So that's a good thing. That's a good thing to know.
Yeah.
And so just to finish off, do you have a story? Can you possibly share a story, maybe a speaker that you mentored or that arrived with you and started with you and now is probably at that kind of next level and 10,000 or plus more, that's perhaps people could go and check him out or her out and see how they're doing.
Mm. Okay, so we have a lot of examples in that space. I think one of the really most beautiful growths I've seen is with a MENA-based speaker. Her name is Ray Kabesi, Raise Your Mental Health. You know her, and she was part of the collaborative book as well. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's been so much fun to see her evolution and to see her growth journey as a speaker that's just really been moving up and definitely giving international speakers some competition. And if I would deconstruct the why, I think that the brand got more clarity, the messaging got more clarity of what she's doing. She's been producing a lot of content, which is creating followership. She's been invited into the press to do some critical, like very big interviews that have gained a lot of traction. And she's used a lot of social media platforms, like including TikTok and Instagram and LinkedIn, and just really a great role model of somebody who's built a great brand and is still building a great brand and just really on it. So I would say she's a great example of somebody who's done that. And of course, she was part of the collaborative book, shared her story, which is another way to communicate your own narrative in a written format. And there's something beautiful about that. So the speakers that are moving up in their rate card are the ones that are firing all cylinders.
Yes.
And like that across the board. And they are improving their skill. They are becoming better speakers, looking for feedback, their brand and their PR. It's that combination of things that makes people increase their rate card.
Yeah, definitely. I think that was probably my next question that I had for you. What's the difference? How do you differentiate somebody who's here and somebody who's going there? I guess it's that consistency on all levels, like you said.
Yeah,
Definitely.
it could. So yeah, it could be consistency. That's like adding a lot of pressure to busy people. I'm acutely aware. It's just if you do something, do it really well. And I think a good KPI to know if you're high impact or not is, are you building a following? Are you building a tribe? Are people resonating with your message? And you can see that from the numbers. Are your numbers increasing? Are you getting high engagement rates? That's a fantastic KPI that you're talking about something that is fresh, relevant, that resonates in people's minds and hearts. Then you know you're onto something. And then all you do is start drumming it up and making it even louder.
Brilliant. Very cool. So just to finish off, Sana, how about 3 tips, right? Just kind of what would be the 3 top things that you think, to really move that needle from one level to the other? So we've talked about it so in that conversation, but just to recap on 3 top points, top tips.
Yeah, so I'm going to take it a bit outside of perhaps comments that I've already made, but one is truly treat it as a business. Run your ads, have your marketing spend, treat it like any other business. This is a startup, it's a business, focus on it, or perhaps scale up if you're trying to edge to the higher, revenues, honorariums. So treat it as a startup, scale up. It's a business. That's one. And you have the CEO and you have the speaker. The CEO needs to do their job. That means run the business properly. And if they're not doing their job, then I'd also advise you to connect with agencies. Agents work for you when you are sleeping, and they are the ones pitching you, putting word out there for you. And there are 2 ways, if you're lucky enough to pass the criteria of agencies, there are 2 ways for you to work with them. Either you take a passive approach, which is, hey, get me gigs, or you take a proactive approach. How can we together create opportunities? What should we together do? And you treat it as an absolute partnership. The one that do this, they're more successful. and they work in the interest of the agency and themselves, which makes the agency work in the interest of the speaker and themselves. So it becomes co-creative. And number three, yeah, this isn't a business for the faint-hearted. It's going to be long hours. It's going to be a lot of work, and you happen to be your product and your business quite often, which means there's going to be work. So put in the time, put in your heart, and it's going to be so worthwhile, because those moments you're standing on stage, changing people's lives, it is priceless. It is such a gift, and really a life worth living. So those are my three.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. That's really cool. Thank you. And I really appreciate your time. And I'm looking forward to continuing working with you as well, and seeing you on stage as well, because you're a bit of a speaker as well. I'm just saying that at the end, just as a little pop-up, but go and check out Saana's videos as well on YouTube, because she's pretty cool when she's on stage as well.
Thank you for saying that.
Something to look for.
Thank you. I appreciate it, Claire. Super.
I'll speak to you very soon. Bye for now.
Yeah, you too. Bye-bye.